Good evening. I am Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. Thank you for joining us. Our guest for the evening is Mr. Nigel Hughes, who is coming in from Guyana. I just want to forewarn you that Nigel is coming in via Skype, and there might be some problems tonight, but I assure you that whenever we get cut off, I am going to dial him back. So I'll take a short break. We are back. The gentleman next to me is Mr. Nigel Hughes, attorney at law. Nigel, good evening, sir, and thank you for appearing on CWS.
Hi, good evening, Selwyn, and to your listeners. It's a privilege and pleasure to be here.
Nigel, I just want to get right into it. Those who are interested in your bio, it's all over the internet and can look that up. But you're a talented and very successful lawyer who can be anywhere in the world, earning much more and with less stress. So why are you still in Guyana? Why did you stay?
Um, to start with, thank you so much for your kind comments. I don't know how accurate they are. And you started with the hard question. Why am I in Guyana? I am in Guyana. It's a long journey. I came back to Guyana essentially because I thought that like everybody who grew up in the era that we all went to school in the 70s and very early 80s, we just felt that we'd come back to contribute. I had an advantage in that I had a father who had a law firm that I knew I was going to join. So that played a major role. But I think most of us who went to school in the 70s felt at some stage or the other we were going to come home. And that's why I'm home. After I got here, got involved in a series of things. It was an exciting time. I came back in '88. I thought Guyana was turning around. We had new events, and I thought things are going to turn out okay. It didn't do that, and you keep promising yourself that there's going to be a cutoff day when you're going to actually perhaps you know make the move, but I haven't, and I, as you know, about 2 or 3 years ago, ended up in politics because I realized that everything else, if you really wanted to change Guyana, you had to take the ultimate plunge.
You know, Nigel, when you mention ending up in politics, I am especially moved because I remember in the late '80s when and early '90s and so on when I visited Guyana a lot. Part of our custom was to get together, have a meal, and catch up. And there are two questions you always asked me. One, Selwyn Collins, what do you think is the state of Guyana? And two, what do you think we can do or what can we contribute to make it a better place? So it is, I relish the opportunity tonight to ask you this particular question because we haven't had a chance to talk in many, many years. Diverging paths, commitment, and all these kinds of stuff. So I pose these same questions to you, Nigel. What is the state of Guyana? And well, let me phrase this question a different way. What are you doing to make it a better place?
Selwyn, thanks. Two things actually. One, Guyana's really, if you're here, Guyana's a bit of a drug. It's you want to change it, and at the same time, you just absolutely hate where it is. And then you get like Don Quixote, and you really think you can change it, but the reality is that any change you make is going to be very, very incremental. I'm happy you mentioned late 80s because when I came back in '88, by 1990 there was a grouping called the Patriotic Coalition for Democracy, the PCD, which was trying to get together all these people who thought that Guyana could be different, and we thought that things would change. So I remember I ended up speaking at the parade ground on a guard platform, talking about the change that could be. And here I am, was it 30 something years later, or 20 something years later, and still stuck in the same place, thinking that Guyana would be different. But I suppose what is the state of Guyana? Guyana is one of those countries where, despite what the economic figures say, despite what the various indices of our development say, we are really at a difficult place, not only politically, we're just a difficult place socially in terms of development. And in terms of our ability to move forward, and this is my biggest concern now, is that assuming that we get a change and everybody is committed to moving Guyana forward, we don't actually have the human resources physically located in Guyana to be able to take it forward. That the management skills have all left. A lot of the talent has left, and every year out of the graduating class at University of Ghana, you've got what in excess of 70 graduates who within 2 to 3 years are not here, and you really can't. If you think about it rationally, you can't really run a country where your best brains are just hemorrhaging every year. And the reason they hemorrhage is because nobody really sees, no young person, I should say, really sees a big future here. I mean, they really don't see their future here, or they don't see themselves being able to make the sort of social, economic, and other advances that they could elsewhere. So we keep hemorrhaging. And if you talk to the old timers, I mean, it was no different in the 40s and 50s, save and except in the 40s and 50s, we didn't actually have tertiary level institutions in Guyana. We got University of Guyana, but still we're in a difficult place.
Mm.
What can I do to change it? I don't believe at an individual level I can make a difference. I believe people of like minds do have to come together to rescue Guyana. I certainly don't think there's any one single individual that's going to do this, or one single party that's going to do this at all. I certainly think, and this is my hope, that we get the talent like yourself that is overseas to actually consider Project Guyana. I know that practically asking people to uproot themselves and come back to Guyana where their educational or health challenges and the facilities are not there may be a tall order, but at least if we can establish a platform, we have the internet, establish a platform where we can benefit from those skills, certainly in terms of planning, critical areas, education, economy, and what have you, so that we can actually begin to make Guyana quote unquote livable, so that all levels of talent in Guyana would feel comfortable, and all levels of talent which reside outside of Guyana would also feel comfortable about coming home.
You know, Nigel, I'm glad you mentioned talent and outside of Guyana and throughout the diaspora. I would like you to help me to answer this particular question that has always plagued me. When we were growing up, we had the benefit of one of the best secondary education any country in the Caribbean had to offer. Some of the greatest minds walked the corridors of education, health, and government. And some of those minds, or most of them, were very young people. They were in their 30s when I in reflection, they were in their 30s and 40s. They went back home. Today, I know things have changed a lot, but many of us who have benefited from that secondary education, the best Guyana had to offer, are still abroad. We came away. Some of you stayed, and I commend you for that. But what changed? What do you think changed that our particular generation did not go back en masse as the ones we witnessed when we were growing up?
So, well, I'm sure in the several discussions that take place in the sitting rooms of Guyanese all over the world, that question is probably raised almost on a daily basis. I think one of the things is that we've got to remember that once we got to 1977 onwards, things started to get economically difficult in Guyana. You remember Walter Rodney came back in around 1978. Politically, things were not good. Certainly, economically, things were not good. We certainly had extended blackouts, fuel rationing, the socialist philosophy of the state commanding the economic heights of the economy, and things started to get difficult. So what happened is the people who went on scholarships, whether they went to Western educational institutions or whether they went to the East, those who went to the East didn't have the same freedom of action as those that went to the West, because invariably they had to come back home. But those that went out on scholarships, a lot of them didn't come back because Guyana just literally was not an attractive prospect. So, despite having benefited from the great educational opportunities and facilities that Guyana had in the 60s, 70s, 80s, well, up to 80s, people, when they got an opportunity to leave and they looked at where they were after they had qualified, and after they were on the job market, did not think that Guyana was going to get better. I mean, there are a series of events that might have contributed to that. Dr. Rodney, sorry, died in 1980, and we were in really difficult straits. So I think it wasn't an attractive prospect. Added to that, you had a political situation in which people who didn't support the ruling party of the day felt that they were excluded, didn't have a chance, they didn't think they would a time when their vote would actually would count. So we had a lot of things going on that did not make Guyana attractive. Those of us that went to the east, those students that went to study in the east, had to come back because they couldn't really stay there. But when they came back, once they'd served, again, like the graduates from the University of Guyana now, decided that the prospects here didn't quite work. We then, of course, by 1992, most of us had qualified and had already taken a decision about whether we were going to come back or whether we were going to stay where we were. And there was a hope. I mean, there really was real hope in '92 that everybody would really be involved in the change of Guyana. It didn't turn out that way. And by the time Dr. Jagan died, I think the die was cast. And it's really painful. But I don't think we are, in terms of keeping our talent or people wanting to live in Guyana, we are in any different position than we were before. Certainly economically, I think we're in a much better financial position. We don't have the debt burden. We don't have the blackouts the way for as long as we used to have in those days. Telecommunications, of course, the development in telecommunications have been significant, so you don't have to wait for a call for 24 hours or what have you. But so yeah, you've seen economic improvement, but if you speak to the average citizen who is here, most of them will tell you they're probably trapped because they can't leave. And if tomorrow either the Canadians or the Americans were to say that they were giving migrant status to Guyanese, I think a lot of them would seriously take that up. And you can't really develop a country with that. What I will say, however, was that when we were in school, we had an idea of nationhood. We had an idea of what Guyana meant, of developing Guyana, of being part of the process to make Guyana a better place. I don't think we have, or let me say, I don't detect the same sense of nationhood today. I think whether it's because geopolitical circumstances have changed or otherwise, I don't get the same sense of nationhood in Guyana. I think what if you ask most Guyanese, they're just basically trying to make a living.